Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So changing up the format, I've made the webcam smaller based off some feedback, made the font bigger on the screens. So what we're going to be covering today is strings. So we're going to be looking at manipulating strings, printing out some statements using strings, and just generally what's some stuff you can do with strings. So let's just get straight into it now. So the first thing I'm going to do is obviously open up Python and idle, and we're going to set up a brand new script. So I've opened that already up, and the first thing I want you to do is just type your name and assign that to a variable. So I'm going to call Milimbasi is equal to the name. So one of the things you can do in Python is print out individual characters from strings. So if I did print name 0, you'd expect it to print out the first index. Because if you remember from one of the previous videos, we said that counting in Python or just general programming starts from 0. So that would print out M. And then obviously the next one I can do is 1, and that will print out the next letter. So on and so on. So let's just give that a quick test. So that's test number 5 for me. So you can see there, printing out 0 and 1 has printed out M and I. And that's seen in the interpreter behind the video. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is how do you do this and actually use it, I guess. So, you could sit there and type out each individual one and eventually print out the whole word in different strings. But let me give you an example of something you could create. Now, it'll print that out, but then I want to take some input. So from the last video, we learned how to do that. So I'm going to enter a name here. So that's the end of that one. So I'm going to ask the user, what's your name? Can you please enter that here? And then I'm going to print the name. Name is equal to, just print the name, just so people know what their names are and that the computer is taking it in. X equals the integer input. So we did this in the last video. Enter a number. So, there's some error checking that could go on here, but we're going to avoid that in this instance. We're just going to ask the user to enter a number. So say I enter the number 3. Well, what I want to do is print the third letter in my name, or third index. So I'm going to do print index number. Put that there, put the X there. Is, and then name, brackets X. Close that off there. So what that's going to do is you're going to enter your name, and then it will print that index number. So if I was to run that right now, enter a name, Milan, enter a number, so 3, and then index number 3 is A. That's just a simple program, I guess is the best way of describing it, that manipulates a string to select a character specifically from the string. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is how do you make this more efficient rather than, iterating over a loop over and over. So I'm going to set X is equal to 0 here. And X is going to be an index counter in this example. So while X is less than the length of name, so what length name does is it returns an integer to the application of how long a word is. So once you've done that, what I'm going to do here is print, and then index X, so whatever the index is name X, and close that, and then you need to iterate the loop, so X plus 1. So what this while loop is basically going to do is, while X is less than the length of the name, can you please continue to iterate through the loop and print out the different characters on separate lines. So that's the end of that one basically, and then what you can do is just run that. So this is going to do the first example where I just enter a number, and you can see afterwards straight away it prints out every single index number in the string. So why is this useful? Well, indexing with strings is very similar to indexing with lists. So if you can understand how to manipulate a string and iterate through the string, you'll be able to understand how to iterate through a list, which we'll get on into in the next few videos when we look at data structures. So this example here is how to use simple Python basics to manipulate strings essentially. So what else can you do? You could also write a for loop. So for x in name, print x. It's two lines, and it does exactly the same thing as the while loop, just doesn't use the counter, and it's a lot more compact in terms of coding. Another thing that you have to remember in terms of Python, I'm just going to remove this and make it clearer, is if you have your name here, you can also use negative numbers. So if I did print name -1, because you can't have -0, essentially, you're going to be starting at 1. What that's going to do is print out the last index. So if I was to run that, you'd expect n to be printed, which it does. And the same goes on in the form of print name -2, and then that'll print out the A. So we're basically using minus numbers to get whatever's at the end of the string. Once again, this is something that's useful when dealing with lists. You can iterate through a list or select last items from a list, which can be really helpful when working with algorithms that need to sort stuff or, comparing things at the beginning of the list with the end of the list. But we'll get onto all of this when we look at data structures. So what else is it that you can really do with strings? So we have this string here, million. So I'm going to make a change to this string quickly. I'm going to not capitalize my name at all, and we'll just have it in lowercase. So if I wanted to capitalize the name, I'm going to do capitalize equals name dot capitalize, and that's like that. And Python automatically tells you what it's doing. It's going to return a capitalized version of the string. So this is really useful if you had to take some string input and print it out in a new format. Other things we can also do with the strings is title equals name.title, and that will return a string using the title format. We can also do uppercase letters, return a copy of the string, convert it to uppercase. We can also do lowercase letters, which is name.lower, and we can also do a print statement for all of these then. So if I was to print these, I was to run that, and you can see there that the results have been outputted. So why is this useful? Well, let's take an example. I'm going to be validating some strings. When a user enters their string, they might enter in upper and lowercase. But when I want to check, is this string containing the letter A, for example? Well, I could do a check for A and uppercase A, as they're both the same things. Or I can just lowercase the whole string and essentially just check for the lowercase a, which makes the program just seem easier, basically, in the way it works. So you can see here in that example there that, simply putting dot and then a function essentially lets you access much more powerful tools. I'll be covering this in the next video when we look into functions and, and some other stuff along with selections. So what else can we do? Well, some other ways you can manipulate strings is by splitting. So how does splitting work? Well, you essentially would write print name.split, and in this bracketed area here, you'd have to indicate where you want the string to split. So let's just say I want to split my name exactly in half. I just run that there, and you can see it has taken the L out of what it was doing and basically split the string into two, and that's why it's returning me and an instead of what it originally was. Why is this useful? Once again, say you were handling a website URL and I wanted to find out the specific name of the website and some other stuff. Well, I could just split at the dots and it would return back to me every single word between the dots, which could be useful. or say I wanted to find out the name of a file without getting the ending bit, like .text, I can split at the dot, and I would know that the first word essentially is the file name, and the second word essentially is the file type. So moving on from that one, what's the next thing to cover? Well, we can also do find. So if I was to do let's just change my name for a second to be like this. If I did Millenbassy as one word, and I wanted to find out where is the first A in my name, well, I can do first A equals name.find, and then A, and that will tell me where the first A is in my name. And we can also do name dot, so we can also count how many A's there are. We do name dot count, and then put A in there. And then if I was to print this, now if I was to run that, what's that done? Well, it's found out that the index of the first letter A in Millenbassy as one string is the third index. And the same thing applies. It's counted how many times the letter A appears in the string. So we now know that A is occurring in my name twice. And it's just returned those numbers straight to the user. So those are the basics of how to manipulate strings. I hope you guys have found this video really educational and helped you solve any tasks that you're working with strings. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments below, and obviously any feedback in terms of the formatting or how fast I'm talking and anything to do with the video quality, please let me know and I'll be more than happy to make the changes. So I hope you guys enjoy coding, and I'll see you next time.